In this tutorial, we're going to be going over the App Inventor's database, or the TinyDB feature. This allows users to persist data between uses. Typically, when we create an application on our App Inventor, the variables and information is not going to be stored between uses. Those will be cleared out. So in order to maintain some data or persist that data between uses, we're going to utilize App Inventor's TinyDB component. So the objectives for this lesson is create an app that saves the player's high score between sessions. We're going to learn about the concept of persistent data and learn how to access App Inventor's simple database component. So we have a base file that is ready, getting us started for this experience. So we click here and it will download into your App Inventor this TinyDB template. This is what it will give you. The designer feature looks like this, and we're going to build on that. So right now the user interface is set up pretty much like this when we log in. It begins here with welcome, what is your name, a text box, and a button to start the game. After that, the application is designed to have a mole match feature come up and a couple buttons here. So we have some visibility toggles that I want to talk to you a little bit about how to do that. However, we'll test our app right now and see what they gave us. Okay, I've linked up my App Inventor companion, and here is what the base file provides us. It says here in a label, welcome, what is your name, and a text box to type your name in, and then that button, start a game. So I'm going to type my name in, and I'm going to hit start game. Okay, right now the application has an Android moving around and a couple buttons. Let's test to see what features are working. Okay, so now I have a score of 5. I'm going to hit the save score button and nothing happens. I'm going to hit the reset button. Okay, that does reset my score. So we do have some work to do on this application. Right now I can tell right off the bat that we have these labels here. The welcome label doesn't come back up and our high score isn't displayed. So those are our main focuses for this particular app. Okay, so we're going to be using a TinyDB. It's a non-visible component that can be used to store data values on a device. The TinyDB component can be found in the palette storage drawer. Let's look at this as to see a little bit more information about our Tiny database. Apps created with App Inventor are initialized each time they run. That means that if an app sets a value of a variable and then the user quits the app, the value of that variable will not be remembered the next time the app is run. In contrast, TinyDB is a persistent data store for that app. The data stored in a TinyDB will be available each time the app is run. An example might be a game that saves the high score and retrieves it each time the game is played. Data items consist of tags and values. To store a data item, you need to specify the tag it should be stored under. The tag must be a text block, giving the data a name. Subsequently, you can retrieve the data that was stored under a given tag. Okay, and we'll have a notifier here. This is another non-visible component used to display a message or notice on the screen for the user to see. And this is our code walkthrough of what was provided. So the specifications will go into this in greater detail as we come down here. But we can see that we have a procedure, a welcome user procedure that is not completed, and a button save function that is not done as well. So we will need to complete those two pieces for this project to work entirely. All right, we have our global variables, name, score, and high score. Those are set up for us. Starting the app, when we hit the button play, if our text box is empty, it will show the notification that to please type in your name. Otherwise, it's going to go into your setup user interface procedure and then call welcome user, which we have not finished yet. But the setup here, this is interesting. We have these visibility toggles that are important to recognize how that works. So if a user isn't going to have multiple screens and just work with one screen, you can do that by toggling visibility of certain components. So let's take a look at what these components are and how the visibility works. Okay, so when we start up right now, our horizontal vertical arrangement right here, this is set to visible. So that piece there is on. When we come the application is started or initialized, we have our vertical arrangement pop up. We have certain things that are hidden, like this horizontal arrangement as well is true, but maybe our canvas here, that is not visible. That's where our Android moves around. So we can toggle the visibility of our canvas using our setup user interface, setup UI procedure. Like our label score, this here is also set to not visible when it starts up, and it will toggle between visibilities using that procedure setup UI. Moving the Android around, this is similar to our mole mesh. It's going to use the timer to drive the procedure move Android to set that Android somewhere randomly on the canvas, but taking into consideration the Android's width and height so it doesn't pop off the screen or off the canvas. Our keeping scored function here, when the Android is touched, we update global score by 1, give out a vibration to the user, call update score, and then our procedure to move the Android again. Our update score simply takes our label text, our label score, and joins the text score with our global score that we obtained by touching that Android here. Resetting the game calls the procedure to reset, sets our global score back to 0, and then updates the score and welcomes the user again, which we have not done yet. Okay, storing and retrieving data. We talked a little bit about how that's done with a tag and a value. So tinydb.storeValue will accept this tag, which can be either a constant or a variable, and then a value as well that can be a constant or a variable. And then retrieving that, you must specify the tag under which you stored that value in, and then you want to also provide a default value should there not be anything stored in that tag. Okay, so this is where we get to do some work here. We have our first piece that needs work is the button save function. So that is not complete, but we have some pseudocode here on how we can try to get that button save feature up and running. First it says if score is greater than high score, then store the user's score in the Tiny database using their name as a tag, set the user's highest score to their current score, and alert the user with a notifier that they have a new high score. Else, meaning that their score is not higher than the highest score, tell the user what their current highest score is. It does provide this down below for the solution, but I'd like you to work through this at this point in time. And let's go into our App Inventor program to build this in our blocks editor. Okay, down here on our button save feature. So we have an if then else statement that will be helpful here. If we're going to try to compare our scores. So we need to compare our score to the global highest score. So if our score that we currently have is greater than the global high score, our score is greater than the high score, then we need to call our database to store a value. And we're going to store the name, our name, and our score so we can get that reported back out. So we're going to our name is associated now with our score, and we need to then, since our score is greater than the high score, we now have a new high score, so we need to reset our variable global high score. And we're going to tell the user that they have a new high score as well, so our notifier comes into play here. We're going to show an alert with a notice that we now have a new high score. Now, if, however, our score is less than the global high score, then we need to just report out what the high score currently is. So we're going to go back into our notifier for a different notification that is going to show the alert and a notice that will simply say your score is not the high score. The high score currently is so and so. So what we need to do is we're going to join a couple of features here. So we're going to join a text or a string that says your current high score is, and then we will pull up the global high score. Okay, so that should save us some information there and report out our global high score. Let's test our application at this time now. I'm going to reset that. Okay, so coming back over here, let's type in a name. And I'm going to start the game. I'm just going to go and get a couple here. Okay, let's go to 5. And I'm going to save my score. Congratulations, you have a new high score. Great. Now let's see what happens when I log back in again. I'm going to refresh my companion. Okay, we don't have anything reporting back. So we still need to come up with our welcome user procedure. Okay, so this pseudocode is now completed in our blocks editor. And now we need to retrieve the high score and let the user know kind of where they stand, whether they have the high score or they have a new high score. So that's pretty good. So here is the pseudocode for that. For the welcome user procedure, set the highest score to value retrieved from the tiny database. If high score equals 0, then tell our label score to welcome that person by name and tell them to whack the Android to score points. So that's little instructions on how to play the game. If, however, our high score is not equal to 0, we're going to tell the user by name what their high score is. So let's code that up. Here's our welcome user. Okay, so let's get our global high score retrieved. We need to set global highest score to what was in our database. So we're coming down here to our TinyDB. We need to get a value, and the value is going to be based on our name. So we typed in our name in the text box. And if we have no value, so we need to compare it to 0 was what it said. If it equals 0, then welcome the user by name. Otherwise, give them their highest score. So now then we need to do that if, then else control statement to do that. So right now we're checking to see if our global highest score is equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, then we need to set our label score text to report back to the user that this is their first time and a little bit of instructions on how to play the game. All right. Okay, so right now we're going to say welcome, because it is their first time. And we're going to call them by name, the user by name, so we're going to get their name. And we're going to give them a little bit of instructions about, let's see, this one had, I like welcome, comma, so-and-so, period, space, whack the Android to score points. All right. So if we have a high score of 0, meaning that we don't have a score at all, then we're going to welcome the user by name and tell them a little bit about how to use this application. Otherwise, if our score is not equal to 0, then we need to set the label score out to something different. We need to set its text to tell the user, welcome back, your high score is so-and-so. We need to get our join feature here. We're going to have 4 blocks on this one. And I'm going to use a couple of these. So we need to welcome back the user by name. And then we need to tell them your high score is, and we need to get global highest score. Okay, now let's test this feature out. So I'm going to reconnect my App Inventor and refresh this. Move back over here. Let's see what we have going now. All right, back into typing in a name and starting the game. Hey, it did remember me, so welcome back. I do think that we could probably do a little bit of work there because there's no space. Bob, your high score is 5. I'm going to reset it. That feature's not working right now so well, so we need to go in and check that out as well. Let's see if we keep playing. Okay, now I have 6, so I'm going to save my score. And it says here, congratulations, you have a new high score. Welcome back, your high score is 6. Okay, so pretty good. It is reporting back our high score, and it is welcoming a user by name. I like that. Welcome back, your high score is. Welcome back, space. That's going to be just a little bit different, and that'll help us out. We do need to, there is a little bit of a bug, it says here in our text. So as we come down here through, it will tell us a little bit about the welcome user procedure. But it does say here that we could enhance our project by giving the user some information about when they got a high score or when something was saved in the database. We can use a timer to help us out with this. Here is the button save feature, and here is the welcome user procedure. And it does say here, fixing the bug, just call the reset procedure at the end of the button save. At the end of the button save, we need to call the reset. So over here, at the end of the button save, we need to call the reset procedure to help with our bug there. Okay, now going back here, I wanted to look at how we could do this, enhancing our application. So in our button save feature, we could use that notifier to even give more information out to that user. So let's take a look at this right here. Once we have said you have a new high score, you can also do a little bit of some enhancement here by adding in more information. So what we could do is we could join that congratulations along with somewhat of a timestamp. And we need to get format time instant. We need to call our Android timer. Now, where is that? Calling it to turn on. Right here. Okay, so when we save it, we're now going to get a congratulations and a timestamp as to when that took place. So let's refresh our companion and take a look at how that looks, that enhancement. All right, welcome back, and I did provide that little space there, Bob. Your highest score is 6. I have high. I'm going to save my score. It says here, Okay, neat. I have my timestamp here, a new high score at 9:34 in the morning. Nice. Okay, that's a neat little enhancement to for our application. Okay, so that is a quick run through on how you can use your tiny database to store a username and a high score value and report it back to the user. And that is a very handy feature that App Inventor has and should be utilized with most applications that you can build. Thank you.